Hello, my friend. I just finished a quick run in the basement garage. Today is June 16th, 2026. So yeah, this morning I got up quite late at 9:30. My sleep was alright, but we went to bed around 11. I actually fell asleep around midnight. We had a long talk last night after we got back. I think it was 9:30, so the conversation lasted about 2 hours. Let me just try to share what happened in my relationship with my wife. So a few days ago, I shared in my journal. I wrote, just publicly shared with everybody. I don't even know who would read them, but somehow she just got a text from her friend. She checked my journals and found out that I was thinking to change my mind. I was having a change of mind about the decision of getting married with my wife, and that friend just sent a screenshot to her, and she was quite surprised, and in a bad way. She was frustrated to find out that through a friend. And then she even brought up, she just said to me, quote, "We should just separate then if you have already changed your mind." And I got also very frustrated. For the past few days, I'm not much better. We have already talked things through and gotten at a very good place, but in the past few days we were just kind of arguing and having no progress. And so what happened, over the few days I just felt so disturbed by our time together. Lots of things just triggered my problems, and then I just expressed that openly in my journals. But I just was waiting for a good moment when we both are available and energetic enough, because usually when my wife gets home it's almost 7, and after dinner we're just kind of tired and she's on her phone, and so we just wouldn't be able to have an effective conversation and open communication. So I was waiting maybe for this upcoming weekend, and so she found out early that conversation was inevitable. I just accused of her with a few points, what has bothered me and what made me change my mind. However, as I reflected upon them more deeply with the help of Claude, I just submitted everything. I just asked Claude to directly access my journals on Notion, and I asked for some help providing some prompts so I can better reflect and think through before the communication. And that reflection really helped me to see that I wasn't really looking at the situation with a clear perspective. What I'm trying to say is I was having a very sentimental, emotional judgment over her, rather than having a very rational analysis of our relationship. And I all of a sudden realized it's that problem again, and it was all caused by my own fears. Every problems I accused of her was actually caused by the stories I made up with my mind, and it was all triggered by the fears in me, and I still haven't taken the time to articulate what are those fears, but I've gained the clarity that those fears were just, making up so many narratives. So I can just say, she did this wrong in our relationship, she didn't do that, or she did that, so that caused me to change my mind. So I was just putting all the blame on her. And then that moment, I gained the realization I was just doing that. So I went another route. I started to look inside and feeling kind of confused for a moment. Like, how come I thought about it was all her problems the last moment, and the next moment I started feeling I was actually the problematic one. So it was very conflicting, and I just kept exploring until I realized it was all fear. Those stories, those narratives, whatever I wrote in my journals could be sounding true, but are they really true? Not at all, because they were all like just my subjective judgment, assumptions made about my wife's behavior or whatever. I just kept repeating them in my mind, and so they all felt just so true and real, and that caused the disturbance. It made me feel so heavy inside. So last night I confessed all that. I told her I went through all this process, and I've gained the realization again that it was all caused by my fears, and I casted lots of judgments upon her without really communicating with her. I just thought she did that because of that, she didn't do that because of that, stuff like that. So I just kept talking. I let myself express myself, and for about 2 hours I just sorted everything out, and she was happy to hear my realization and admitting my problems, and it helped both of us to trust each other more. And I want to say it is very healthy and normal to question your decisions, whether small or big, especially a life decision, right? A lifelong decision. You are getting married, you're starting family with someone, and it's just only right to question that decision repetitively. If you don't question it, you just stick with your decision throughout the years, and you have no courage to question it, and that's also normal. However, I didn't feel like to hide or suppress my disturbing feelings. I tried to help myself first by articulating them in my journals, and only by articulating them and bringing them out on a paper, I can just look at them with a different angle and gained more clarity of my own feelings and thoughts. Yeah, so I'm happy for this episode of communication. I learned more. I just strengthened my understanding about myself. Although this understanding was not new to me, I've had this understanding and self-knowledge long time ago, that I tend to judge people's behavior and just label them in my own standards. I have a multiple sets of rules, and I can just put people's behavior, put people's personality or whatever choices into my label in my systems, so that way I can just make sense of them. However, they're really causing lots of misunderstanding and really hurting our relationship, hurting the trust. So I learned that you really need to have discipline when you tend to make a judgment on your partner or any relationship. Really, you just gotta stop for a moment and reflect upon your judgment. What kind of judgment is that? What is the basis? Do you have any actual evidence to back that up? Maybe I think that's what we are good at. We are so good at looking for evidence to back up our beliefs, right? The judgment we made on others, we just would find every evidence to back it up until it becomes real. It becomes the reality. And we just got into all these dead ends and get trapped in our minds for a long time. And it takes great courage to admit the flaw thinking and admit that we were wrong about people, and admit that we were affected by our emotions, and fundamentally it was all fears. If you don't have fears, then you wouldn't have the reason to judge people in that way, because you would be able to stay open-minded and try to really communicate openly and find out what is really happening, instead of judging it quietly and labeling everything on your mind. And another very important finding is that I tend to victimize myself in all kinds of situations. I would judge people very harshly with my standards, and then just put myself in a victim position. So whatever happened to me in life was not my problems, and I was a victim, and people didn't do that or did that, and they, whether intentionally or not, hurt me and ignored my feelings or whatever. And so I can be a victim. I didn't have to do anything. I just needed to blame and criticize others and feel a little better about my own self, that I would do differently. I would hear more. I don't know, whatever. So yeah, that's a pattern I have seen again. It's not new. Obviously, it's not new. It's many years of programming and just unresolved problems. So we are good now. We've gained more understanding, especially she knew more about me. I've became vulnerable, and that's a really great way to know more about each other. Alright, so I hope by sharing this with you, you can also find more strengths in self-introspection and admitting your own problems, instead of continuing looking for others' faults and just circling in this loop that you are blaming others and you are the victim and everybody is wrong and you are just unfortunate and you are so sad, whatever, you're victim. Let's just stop that. Let's make changes and improve relationship instead of giving up or damaging relationship. Alright, so anyway, I had a great day. I worked on editing, and now I'm gonna go back home, maybe take a shower. It's raining. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye bye.